We could do anything of our choosing. It just had to be international and related to poverty of some sort. So I chose to do something on the continent of Africa, because that would be my area of focus later. And I chose to do the effectiveness of international aid on poverty levels. And as I was doing research and preliminary research, I came across a case study in Nigeria, which I found to be particularly interesting because of its high reliance on the oil sector and its several reform movements, none of which had been effective until the most recent one, the NEEDS program, which stands for the National Economic Empowerment and Development Strategy, which started in 2003. And I did a comparison. Well, I found it to be one of the most effective reform strategies. So I did a comparison between it and former reform strategies to see why it succeeded and why it failed.
The school has a very good international program. So, and the fact that there were faculty members here and professors who were willing to actually work with her and help her through the process and do that much of an in-depth research on Africa, you know, in Juniata, it's just really impressive. I mean, I can't think of any other word except to say it's really impressive. And for me, it's really exciting to see that, I mean, the schools like Juniata training students here, I mean, American students that are non-Africans, to actually get interested and get involved in things that are happening outside of the United States.
There was aid given to Nigeria, and reform movements didn't come out of Nigerian hands. They were almost externally delegated. So there was a lot of resistance to them in the country, and because of political reasons and the environment in which they were being undertaken, they fell flat, and really Nigeria resorted, and its political leaders resorted to its former corruption and bribery and patronage, its traditional means of maintaining power. And the reform movements, especially economically, didn't do much for the levels of poverty to increase any of it.
I think, like she mentioned, it's been like kind of like the culture, if you can say that, quote and off quote. I mean, it's always been that way. Where you have, you know, certain, I think, individuals who believe that, I mean, if they get into power, then they're to serve themselves and not the people. And, you know, they have this cycle of influence where they have the same people with the same mindset that governance is about enriching yourself. Governance is about, you know, making more money and, you know, getting your own share of the national cake, as they call it. It's always been that way. So everybody that goes into politics in African countries, or Nigeria, for example, believes, okay, you know, I'm in this to enrich myself. I mean, I'm in this to get rich. I'm in this to, you know, get as much as I can, as fast as I can in the time I'm going to be here.
In the 1990s, however, international aid reached a point of zero, and its debt just continued to grow because Nigeria was unable to pay it. And finally, in 1999, a civilian leader was, President Obasanjo was elected, and he undertook a movement to design his own reform movement without external regulation or obligation, because the IMF at that point was unwilling to work with them.
Think of what you can probably do later in terms of helping the world focus more on things that actually, you know, she could identify a program that was actually instituted by a local, you know, by the domestic government that actually worked. That because she was comparing the fact that, you know, internationally it has not been working, so what's going to work here? And she was able to identify that something actually works. There are people who don't, you know, actually believe that anything that's actually done in the domestic African country actually works. They just believe, you know, pumping aid into Africa is the solution. I mean, and I'm one of those people that's coming to realize that that's not always going to work. So the fact that you can have, you know, a student here, you know, an undergraduate student in the school that could actually do that in-depth research and focus light on such a program that was instituted by a domestic government, I mean, that actually worked better than foreign aid, which has been the norm and what people think is the be-it-all, I mean, solution to Africa's problem. It's really gladdening to me, and the fact that I'm really impressed. I mean, it's just great. I mean, I don't know what else to say.